To the next in the series on how to use Delphic Oracle. I'm going to delineate the chart of Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I'll walk through various areas of the program to give an overview of what this program does. Now, in the first part here, I'm going to focus on Universal Hermetics. Now, like in many areas, there's the idea of the chart ruler. In Hellenistic astrology, there is typically two chart rulers that describe the overall situation. And the reason for this has to do with the idea of the nautical metaphor that Schmidt has first outlined a number of years ago. The idea is that the ship is like a boat on the ocean, and that the various parts represent various parts of the ship. For example, the midheaven axis represents the mast, and the ascendant, which literally translate, they use the word oiox, means the word helm, and it represents the steering of the ship, where the bow of the boat is pointed, so to speak. So, and it, interestingly enough, visually, if you look at it, the bow rises and the stern sets. So, so the ascending sign is the place that rises, like the bow of the boat. So, anyway, one of the first things I wanted to look at, if we're looking at predomination and what planets rule the chart, what this is about asking the question, what is the life for? You can trace this back somewhat to Plato and the myth of So, first thing here we notice is we take the sun by day or the moon by night. Since this is a nocturnal chart, we look at the position of the moon, and because it's angular, at least topically, it's not so much in terms of the idea of goading. There are really two meanings to the idea of kentron. One is a circle of activity around which something revolves, and the other is to act as sort of a goad. And it's the second definition or meaning of the word kentron that has to do with a lot of ways in this, the idea of strength, how strong a planet is, or basically motivated towards action, whereas the other meaning for the kentron means is it upon an area, or say an agora, or area where that has some specific function, and within the context of finding that's basically about delineating an area of life. So in the latter sense, or I should say in the former sense, the moon fits the criteria of being upon a place of activity, while not necessarily being particularly goaded. So we take first the domicile, or now if you want to switch that around, there is an option in Delphic Oracle to change that, where we take either the domicile lord or the confine lord of the predominator to represent the lord of nativity. Well, this is one of the lords. It basically represents what the ship is for. And in this case, one of the significations we got here, well, is Saturn, and the other one is Mercury. Now the Mercury, I rectified this chart back 2 minutes because it's just a sneeze away, and knowing how clocks are set in Austria, and also there's a certain amount of ambiguity about what represents the hoiria, I guess, of the bounds, basically the boundaries between which the bounds are set. And so one of the criteria is for helmsman, for first officer of the boat that steers the ship. and is if it's in the confines of the degree of the ascendant. So if we take that as being indicative of what that's one of the criteria for the lord of the ship. Down here that's basically in Greek is the word is kurios, and this would be the captain. This represents how the person gets where he gets to, and the what is represented by the political officer. It represents what the ship is for. In other words, is it a merchant ship, is it a war ship, and so on. There are different types of lives. In the myth of Ur, it's about a soldier who lost his life in battle, and then he goes back basically up the tunnel, and then comes to a place to, witness a bunch of other souls choosing various lives. One chose the life of a tyrant, one of a simple farmer, etc. And it's that choice that is represented by the oikodespotes. These are like the different types of lives that are like given out. So we notice that Saturn is the main lord here. Now, you might say, what on earth does Saturn have to do with what Arnold Schwarzenegger's life's about? Well, the main thing that he's done with his life is acting. The other thing that he did was bodybuilding. Now, those are the two main things that he's known for. He's also owned some properties, like restaurants. Owned one in the 90s. He had also done a number of business ventures, such as brick, with one of his bodybuilding buddies. I forget his name at the moment, but one of the other things, Saturn has as one of its significations feigned appearance. And this is one of the reasons why Schmidt said that Saturn represents the profession of acting. Okay, so, and the reason being that when you're an actor, you're being something other than what you appear to be. Or I should say, you appear to be something other than what you are. So he's known as being an actor. Now, the other thing, we have Mercury as most likely being the kurios or captain in nativity. And I know a lot of people will be thinking, well, he's not exactly a bookworm. He's not an intellectual in the classical sense. He's not giving that. Certainly, Mercury does have those significations, but one needs to realize that Mercury has a much broader set of significations than a lot of other planets. It's capable, for example, of mimicking every other planet. So it's a little bit tricky there. But one of the things that Mercury represents is the caudicus. And if you notice, that's like the scepter or wand intertwined with two snakes. And it represents kind of like the groping. That it represents using one's hands to accomplish things. And how this ties into bodybuilding. Well, for one thing, the ascendant has to do with one's physical body. And so we take a look at these two planets here. Venus has one of its significations in Valen's Book 1. It says that it makes her priestly rites in the office of the gymnasiarch, the wearing of gold ornament and so on. It's also in modern astrology, it's associated with beauty. The other thing that Mercury represents is contests. So, in essence, what he was doing earlier on in life was being engaged in contests of beauty, using his body as the form. So, the other thing that Mercury represents that's closely related to it is wrestling. So bodybuilding, in a sense, is kind of like wrestling in the sense that you're using your arms and your legs and you're doing contortions. And this is one of the ways of looking at it. So if you take these significations as literally as possible, you can sometimes see it visually. And of course, he used that as kind of a jumping off point for going into acting. So this was kind of like, the political officer represents what the life is for, and the captain shows how one gets there. So he got there by, becoming famous through these bodybuilding, contests. Now, the other interesting signification for Mercury says down here in the first book of Valens, page 5, says, "Those who covet fame for a wondrous deed or for the sake of profit." And Schwarzenegger is well known for saying, well, he wanted to do something important, become famous for it. So this, I think, very likely one of the reasons why I think Mercury is the curiosity of the nativity. Now, one should take a look. Now, if one wants to know when, for example, these things take place, you want to know when they become Time Lords. This is what Valens says. So we know that one of the important planets is Mercury and the other one's Venus. The other one we want to take a look at here. Now, in terms of support for the nativity, we want to look at the Trigon Lords of the Sectolite. Now, these right here will be the Trigon Lords of the Moon. So the first is the Moon, and the second one's Venus, and Mars is the planet that's said to be assisting. Now, because the Moon and Venus are angular, well, I say relative to topics, not by Kentron, although Venus is somewhat close to the angle here. We have a fairly eminent, we're saying basically here with this technique on Trigon Lords is that small, medium, or large. And what we have here is indications of a large nativity. Now, there's a lot of variations between, someone who's like at the bottom end of large and those who are at the very top. It goes anywhere from, say, someone who might be president of his own company, or involved in the community and widely known in their own community, and up to being world famous. So there's a very wide variation in that. So one shouldn't automatically think that they're going to have a star on Broadway if they have, angular Trigon Lords like that. But it does mean that one gets far in life if they are in centers of activity like that, by whole sign houses. Now, one of the other things I wanted to look at here too, Valens talks about in Book 4, where if the domicile Lord of Spirit, or a lot of exaltation, or a lot of basis happens to be in the 10th, from the lot of fortune, particularly Spirit, and we have this again. Just like in the last example of chart, George W. Bush, who got fortune here in Aquarius, and the 10th from fortune being Scorpio. So, in the domicile Lord of Spirit here is in Sagittarius, so Jupiter, not only is it in the 10th from fortune, but it's conjunct a lot of exaltation to the degree. So, we have here an indication, not just a large nativity, but an exceptionally large one. There may be others in the chart. I'm not going to go too much more into it. I did want to get into the timing of all this. Now, and close that out. Let me open up down here. There should be, let's go to the next one here. Okay. Now, in terms of Schmidt, because he says that the life has something to do with the predomination of argument, I should say, the Decennials have something to do they're very much similar in the way that their algorithms for calculation. In predomination, you're looking for the first, either the sun or the moon or the ascendant. In the Decennials, it's the same thing, except you're looking for the first planet after the ascendant. So, if neither the sun or the moon predominate, well, in this case, the Decennial starts out with the moon, and we get to a point here late. He started bodybuilding around the age of 14 or 15. I'm not sure what that would be in terms of years, but somewhere in this area. But he gets to his first big contest right around here. This is what makes his name around age 21. He comes to America within like the month before that, and then he starts meeting all these people, and this is where he basically started with his destiny. And that's because the captain is activated at this time. And we also note, what happens with this too. If you take a look at Mercury here, it's in the ascendant, and we come to this other period. Now, there's a principle that Schmidt talks about. The focus of the period is when the encounter of the domicile or exaltation lord can be achieved. Now, in the sub-period. Now, since Mercury is in the sign of Cancer, it's either when it encounters, when the sub-period is either here, the moon or Jupiter. So we can say that somewhere around here, particularly the domicile lord, the moon is in the 7th. When he comes to this period, that's when he meets his wife, Maria Shriver, future wife, I should say, at that time. That's indicated by the fact that it's in the 7th topic, and it's the domicile lord when Mercury is there. Mercury is said to request something, and the domicile lord is supposed to provide it. And what it provides is, basically the 7th house, which is marriage. So, let me go over now to reputation and actions. Now, during this same time, he was going through a loosing of the bond, and this is the same time that he met his wife. He was in a Capricorn period for spirit, and it loosed the bond to Cancer, which activates the moon in the 7th. And again, we've got that same thing going on with the idea that he meets his future wife at that time. And then he eventually gets married in 1986, which is when he goes into that next period. Now, one of the other things I wanted to look at, since he became an actor, he started his first acting right around 1970. There was that film, Hercules or something like that, I'm not sure. But this was in 1970, and this is right under. But again, we got the idea that if we have a general period that's like many years, like this, which lasts for 27 years, when you come to the domicile lord or exaltation lord, that is the focus of the period. And so he's in this general Capricorn period, and then he goes all the way around and he encounters the domicile lord in Leo, and that becomes the focus of the period. And again, this is, remember the signification, Saturn there, and the Sun as well is activated. That brings up the first, essentially, role he had as an actor. And then he just continued doing those roles, of course. And when he starts to become really famous is when he reaches, notice this, after he gets to the Cancer period, then he comes to the Scorpio sub-period. Now because he has fortune here, he'd have to go probably close to 300 years to reach the 15-year variation, in order to go through that, but it's much too long for a lifetime now. But you can reach it in the sub-periods and have, some effect as well. Now, funny thing about this is that he's got kind of an extended eminence period right here. The reason being, since we have the 10th from fortune here, we know that's important. Jupiter conjunct exaltation. It's also the domicile lord of spirit being present. So we know this Scorpio period is going to be really good. We also know that the Sagittarius period is going to be quite good because the Lord that continues and activates Jupiter conjunct exaltation in the 10th from fortune. And then we know that Capricorn, again, also good because it's angular natally and has the moon present. And so the interesting thing is the roles that he had during these times. You had Conan the Barbarian, and then under Capricorn, which is the sign of the Grim Reaper, by the way, he does the role of Terminator. So it's highly appropriate for what he was doing. So anyway, there are other things that happened later on. When he finally gave up being an actor, this was around 2003, he became governor of California, and noticed that he had been in an Aquarius period, and he comes to Leo, and that is, again, once 1986, the counter, first he had this, he countered it first in 1995. I'm not sure what was going on there. But anyway, when he gets to loosing the bond, that's also the encounter of the domicile lord, and it activates the sun. So another highly important period, and that's when he became governor of California. Actually, in the sub-period, when you go down through here, it was the 7th of October that he got elected. So it was and it was, by the way, this was, again, 10th from fortune period, highly eminent period because it's Scorpio. Anytime you hit that Scorpio period, you're in the spotlight, and then he reaches the, not so much that, but he's in the 7th from fortune, another angular period relative to fortune, and it's also encounter of a dignified lord there in its own domicile. So this is a very potent day, we know, at that time. So anyway, this has been kind of a summation of the things that you can do using and giving an example of Arnold Schwarzenegger's chart. Thank you.